They screamed the words like they wanted to carve them into me. The greatest gift for your brother's wedding is if you disappear from our family forever. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just zipped my suitcase with shaking hands, slid the car keys into my pocket, and walked out the door, letting it slam behind me like a final punctuation mark on a story I refused to keep writing. The air outside bit at my cheeks, but it felt cleaner than the air in that house ever had. 26 years old, and for the first time I was an orphan by choice. Their daughter, stripped of title and affection. Their scapegoat, finally stepping off the altar. Back at my apartment, I moved like someone half asleep but determined. Clothes piled into boxes. A bottle of wine cracked open, sharp and red. My laptop glowed in the dark, like an accomplice. Fingers steady now, I logged in, froze the joint account that had been our so-called family fund. Years of my paycheck had bled into that account while they smiled and said, "We're a team." A single click, and their lifeline froze solid. Then came the apartment. Mine on paper, there's an entitlement. I pulled up the realtor's listing, clicked through forms, and sold it with a calmness I didn't recognize in myself. By morning, the paperwork was filed, binding, and irreversible. When the first call came, I let it buzz. When the second and third followed, I ignored them too. By noon, my phone was a beehive of fury. Missed calls, frantic texts, subject lines screaming urgent. I poured another glass of wine and watched the numbers climb. 89 missed calls by sunset. Then, finally, a voicemail. My father's voice, cracked and frantic. "What happened?" "The bank flagged everything. What did you do?" I listened again and again. Each time, it felt less like my father and more like a man drowning, gasping for the hand he'd spent years shoving under. And all I could think was, if disappearing was the gift they wanted, maybe it was time they finally learned how expensive it really was. Do you want me to keep unfolding this into part 2 of the 8-part arc, same cinematic style? By sunrise, the messages shifted from fury to bargaining. My mother's voice trembled on voicemail. "Honey, we didn't mean it. You know how we get when we're stressed. Just please undo whatever you did. Your brother's wedding depends on this." Her words slithered with the same poison they always carried. We didn't mean it, as if words screamed into my face were accidents, as if my life was just collateral damage to their stress. I stared at the phone, unmoved. 26 years old, and I finally understood. They never apologized. They only negotiated. I poured coffee and opened my laptop again. The numbers glared back at me. Every transfer I'd made, every loan that was never returned, every bill I'd paid to keep their image spotless. My brother's tuxedo, the floral deposits, the engagement dinner, I footed without a thank you. Over $60,000 siphoned from my veins into theirs. My silence had been their gold mine. But now, silence was my weapon. I uploaded every receipt into a folder, labeled it wedding gift, and stared the progress bar crawl across the screen. Each document felt like a brick being stacked, building something heavier than revenge, proof. By afternoon, the ripple started. A bridesmaid texted me, "Why is the photographer threatening to walk?" Then another, "Your mom said you froze the fund? Is that true?" I laughed, the sound sharp in my empty apartment. They thought I'd stay quiet, hiding my hurt in the shadows. They thought wrong. That evening, my father called again, his anger cracked into something smaller. "Listen, just tell me what you want. Money? An apology? Don't ruin this for your brother." His brother. His son. Never me. I let the call go to voicemail and sat in the dark, wine glass in hand, the city humming beyond my window. For once, the chaos wasn't mine to fix, and as I closed my eyes, a thought bloomed like a fire in my chest. If their perfect wedding was the crown jewel of our family, maybe I'd let them wear it shattered. The night before the rehearsal dinner, I sat on the floor of my stripped-down apartment, surrounded by half-empty boxes. My phone buzzed on the counter like a trapped insect, each vibration a new demand. My brother had finally joined the chorus. Fix this now. You're embarrassing us. Grow up. Embarrassing them. That was always the sin, wasn't it? Not that they drained me dry. Not that they spat the word forever like a curse. Just that I dared to expose the cracks. I ignored him and went back to the file I'd created. Every statement, every signed document sat in perfect order. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I opened my email and began attaching the file to a draft addressed to one person who would savor it more than anyone else, Uncle Ray. My father's estranged brother, the one he called a vulture. Ray lived for blood in the water, and now I had given him a feast. Within an hour, he called. His laugh was jagged, alive. They've been robbing their own daughter blind and parading the boy like a prince? Oh, kid, you've handed me a masterpiece. My stomach nodded, but I didn't stop him. Some betrayals are too heavy for one set of hands. The ripple began instantly. A vendor emailed me directly. Your father's check bounced. We're canceling unless this is resolved by morning. Then a cousin messaged. People are whispering. Why would you pull funding days before the wedding? Why? As if the reason wasn't stitched across every scar they'd given me. I stood at the window, watching headlights slide across wet pavement, and felt something shift inside me. They thought I'd break, that I'd crawl back out of guilt or shame. But the truth was simpler. I wasn't ruining their wedding. I was letting them choke on the life they built without me. And as the city hummed beneath me, the question pressed in quiet, steady rhythm. Would I watch from the sidelines tomorrow, or would I make sure the whole room saw the empire collapse in real time? The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be their victory lap. I knew because I saw the photos stream across social media, the rented smiles, the champagne toasts, the captions dripping with perfection. Family first, celebrating love. But behind the polished filters, cracks were spreading. Ray called me mid-scroll, his voice thick with amusement. Your old man's drowning. Ballroom management just went public. Says the deposit bounced. Local papers are sniffing around. Kid, you don't even have to lift a finger. They're doing the demolition themselves. I pictured it, my mother's forced laughter, my father's vein bulging at his temple, my brother snapping at waitstaff while pretending to be a gentleman. The image should have made me sad. Instead, it settled over me like quiet justice. By midnight, my mother finally texted, You've made your point. Come tomorrow. We'll talk. Just don't ruin the wedding. I stared at her message until the words blurred. Come tomorrow. As if she could summon me, like a prop, polish me up for the illusion of family unity. She didn't want me. She wanted my silence, my compliance, my invisible presence in the background. I typed a reply, then deleted it. Again and again. Nothing felt right. In the end, I powered off the phone and let the dark room hold my answer. The next morning, I slipped into a cafe downtown. Laptop open, the world buzzing around me. Headlines were already crawling across news sites. Prominent family in financial dispute. A photo of my father shaking hands with a city official appeared under the text, his smile brittle, his eyes hollow. I stirred sugar into my coffee and thought about the wedding hall, the guests expecting spectacle, the weight of their whispers when the truth unraveled mid-ceremony. And then it struck me, clear as glass. If their greatest gift was my disappearance, maybe the cruelest gift I could give was to let them stand exposed, while I lived, breathing, free and untouched. The morning of the wedding, my phone was already vibrating when I woke. I didn't even check, I knew it was them. Desperation has a sound, and it buzzes like a dying insect. I showered slowly, dressed simply, jeans, a black sweater, and brewed coffee like it was any other Saturday. Somewhere across town, makeup artists were painting smiles onto faces. Photographers were setting up tripods, and caterers were calculating unpaid invoices. And me? I was calm, detached, 26 years old, finally unshackled. At noon, Ray sent me a screenshot. The ballroom staff had posted on their official page, event postponed due to payment issues. Guests were already arriving. Some were already leaving. The family was being shredded in whispers before the vows could even be spoken. By early afternoon, another update. The florist's van refused entry, the band canceled last minute, and the bar staff locked the liquor cabinets until payment cleared. My parents, once the self-proclaimed pillars of respectability, were reduced to arguing in public with vendors half their age. I sat at my kitchen table, scrolling. Every new message felt like a pulse of vindication. Then a voicemail slipped through, this time from my brother, the golden child, the reason I was erased. His voice cracked in ways I had never heard. You did this. You've destroyed everything. Are you happy? I replayed it twice. His words were meant as an accusation, but they sounded like confession. He was admitting that without me, without what I gave, they had nothing. I closed my eyes and inhaled. For years, I believed their love was conditional on my obedience. But now I saw the truth. It was never love. It was dependence dressed as authority. As the city lights began to flicker outside my window, a single thought curled through me like smoke. Maybe my real revenge wasn't in ruining their wedding, but in never stepping foot near their wreckage again. By dusk, the chaos had spilled into the open. Guests in gowns and pressed suits stood outside the ballroom, confusion turning into gossip. Phones snapped photos, voices carried, and soon the whispers swirled into something harder to contain. They couldn't pay. I sat in a quiet bar across town, nursing a glass of whiskey, my laptop open on the counter. Ray fed me updates in real time, his texts ruthless and amused. Bride's family crying in the lobby. Band packed up their gear. No music tonight. Your father yelling at the manager. Someone caught it on video. I pictured it all in cinematic detail. My mother's face cracking under the weight of shame. My father's booming voice stripped of power. My brother's bride, trying to smile while her fairy tale collapsed around her. The family that demanded I disappear was being erased by their own hands. My phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't them. It was a friend from high school, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Hey, saw the news. Are you okay? Heard your family's in a mess. I typed back slowly, I'm fine, better than ever. And for the first time, it wasn't a lie. When I stepped out of the bar, the night air was cool, the city lights blinking like stars I could finally reach. I realized I didn't need to see their downfall in person. Knowing it was happening, that was enough. I walked home quietly, each step lighter than the last. Their empire had crumbled without me lifting more than a finger. And somewhere deep in my chest, a new truth rooted itself, steady and undeniable. I hadn't just disappeared from their family. I had rewritten what family meant, and for the first time it didn't include them. The morning after the wedding that never was, the headlines hit harder than any toast could have. Lavish ceremony, canceled amid financial scandal. Beneath the title, a photograph of my father outside the ballroom, face twisted in rage, my mother shielding herself from cameras, my brother staring hollow-eyed into the pavement. I sat at my kitchen table, hair damp from the shower, toast untouched, scrolling through article after article. Reporters speculated about debts, unpaid vendors, family fund mismanagement. They didn't know the whole story, but they knew enough. And that was all it took. My inbox flooded too. Old acquaintances who had once ignored me now reached out with polite curiosity, feigned sympathy. So sorry you're going through this. If you ever want to talk. As if they hadn't sat at those holiday tables, watching my parents praise my brother while I was invisible at the edge. I ignored them all. By noon, the family group chat buzzed to life. The same chat where I'd once been silenced, where my words were met with thumbs downs and mockery. Now it was frantic. We need to fix our image. Please don't leak more. Think about what this is doing to us. To us. Never to me. I closed the chat and dragged it into the digital trash. One more door slammed shut. My phone rang one last time, my father again. I let it play out. His voice cracked like dry wood, Come home. We'll talk. You can't do this to your family. I whispered into the silence of my apartment, not into the phone. You already did. As evening fell, I stood at my window and watched the city glow alive, untethered from the ruins they'd built. And the thought burned steady in my chest, sharper than grief, softer than joy. Their downfall wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. The sun rose slow and pale, but it felt like mine for once. No buzzing phone, no urgent messages, no family shouting over one another to drown me out. Just light spilling across my bare apartment floor, touching the packed boxes I hadn't bothered to move yet. I brewed coffee and let the steam rise, curling like a question mark that no longer needed an answer. My parents' empire had already collapsed. Their perfect son's wedding, the stage they had built to show the world how united and flawless they were, now lived only in whispers of failure and shame. I didn't post a thing. I didn't leak another receipt. I didn't need to. Silence had done what words never could. They were left standing in the ruins, pointing fingers at each other while I walked free. That afternoon, I met a realtor to view a small loft on the edge of the city. Sunlight poured through wide windows, bouncing off hardwood floors that smelled faintly of fresh varnish. No ghosts here. No family voices echoing in my head. Just space that was mine, ready to be filled with nothing but my own laughter, my own choices. As I signed the papers, a calm spread through me. 26 years old, and for the first time, I wasn't someone's scapegoat, someone's wallet, someone's forgotten daughter. I was just me. Whole. That night, I poured a final glass of wine, raised it toward the empty room, and whispered to absence, to freedom. The phone in the drawer stayed off. The silence didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like arrival, because the truth was simple. They had demanded I disappear, and I did. But in disappearing from them, I had finally appeared to myself.